So please concentrate because this session, or I would say this topic, is one of the trickiest topics of grammar, right? And similar to nouns and pronouns, there are a few rules in this chapter, modifiers. And in order to solve the questions, it's very important for you to understand all those rules and types and corrections of modifiers, right? So we'll start the session. So please stay interactive in the session, throughout the session, and let me know if you have any doubts, right? You guys are free to ask me any questions at any point of time during the session, after the session, or at any point of time, right? It's very important in grammar, especially, to have all your doubts getting cleared, right? Because grammar is, it's such a subject that you feel that your answer is also correct and you feel that the rest of the answers are also correct, because we try to solve the questions of grammar in such a way that whatever sounds good to us has to be the correct answer according to us, right? So it's very important, to have all the doubts cleared. So just stay active, stay interactive, stay active, and I hope you don't sleep in this session. I have made this chapter in this session, in fact, as much interesting as I can. So yes, let's start with this. And also you guys are free to talk, right? So let me know if you want me to unmute you people, right? Okay, so what are modifiers according to you? I want participation from each one of you. So please keep posting your answers in the chat box or using your mic, right? What are modifiers according to you? Have you heard about this word earlier? Good evening, Bhargav. Have you heard about this word in the earlier sessions? No idea? Okay, fine. Very honest. Have I used this word in the earlier sessions of nouns or pronouns? Any idea that you have about the word modifiers? Okay, great. No worries. Let's start from scratch, right? So what are modifiers? I have used this word in the earlier sessions as well. I have tried to make you understand this word modify in such a way that whatever modifies means whatever describes one particular thing, right? So let's say, for example, if we talk about the definition of adjective, exactly, Bhargav, correct. It's like an adjective, right? So if we talk about the definition of adjective, what does it do? What does an adjective do? What is the role of an adjective? It describes a noun or a pronoun, right? Exactly, correct, Tushar. So what does an adjective do? Let's say, for example, if I say the girl is beautiful, let's say if the statement is the girl is beautiful, which is the adjective in this particular statement? Beautiful, right? Beautiful is an adjective. Now, what are we describing in this particular statement? We're describing a girl. The girl is beautiful, right? And so whenever you're trying to describe a noun or a pronoun in a particular statement, then it is described using a modifier, right? Clear? So modifier is nothing but a word which tries to describe something, right? Now, in our grammar chapters, there are a lot of there are a lot of titles, I would say, or there are a lot of parts of speech which describe the other parts of speech, right? There are 8 parts of speech: nouns, pronouns. We have already gone through this chapter, right? So from nouns, pronouns, adjectives, adverbs, from all these parts of speech, there are a lot of parts of speech which describe the other parts of speech. So let's say, for example, if an adjective is describing a noun or a pronoun, then an adjective is a modifier. If an adverb is describing another verb or another adverb or another adjective, then an adverb is also a modifier, right? So whichever part of speech you talk about, if in any case it describes any other part of speech or any other subject, then it is known as a modifier. The motive or the role or the purpose of a modifier is to describe something. Clear? Easy to understand. The word modify itself means to describe, right? So by the word, we can suggest, or we can say that whatever describes is known as a modifier. Clear? Till now, any doubts, any questions? This is the basic idea of the whole chapter, of the whole word, right? Of the whole title. Okay, now, obviously, we have 2 main modifiers, adjectives and adverbs. But apart from these 2, we have a lot of other modifiers as well. And modifiers are basically divided into two types: pre-modifiers and post-modifiers. Right now, first of all, let's just go through the definition. And if you're not sitting with a book and a pen in the grammar sessions, please do. Right, it's important for you to note down important points, not to miss them. Right. So, what is a modifier? A modifier is a word, a phrase, or clause that modifies or describes. Right, that modifies, that is, gives information about another word in the same sentence. Right, clear? Okay, so it could be an adjective. An adjective modifies a noun or a pronoun. It could be an adverb as well. An adverb modifies a verb, adjective, or other adverbs. And apart from these two, it could be anything that you could think about. We'll be having a look at the whole list, which is included under modifiers, right? So let's move ahead and now let's talk about pre-modifiers and post-modifiers. So what is a pre-modifier? A pre-modifier is basically a modifier which comes before the word it describes or it modifies, right? What is a pre-modifier? A pre-modifier is a modifier which comes before the word it tries to modify. Clear? And a post-modifier is a modifier which comes after the word it modifies or it describes, right? We'll have a look at all the examples of all these pre-modifiers and post-modifiers. But first of all, I'm just trying to make you explain the concept of this pre and post-modifier, right? Now, what is the list being included in the pre-modifiers? Pre-modifiers can have determiners, present participles. We'll understand each and every single thing, right? So right now, don't get confused about what a determiner is or what a present participle is. I'll make you explain each and every single detail, right? Let's just focus on the list right now. The first pre-modifier is determiner. The second pre-modifier is present participle. The third pre-modifier is past participle. Then we have adjectives and then we have nouns. Right? You might wonder, how are nouns acting as modifiers? How can a noun describe something else? Right? We'll talk about it. We will talk about that as well. Then a list under the post modifier is relative clauses, prepositional phrases, right? Present participle phrases, past participle phrases, infinitives, and appositives. Clear? So this is basically the whole list which is included under pre and post modifier. Now, I won't take much time, but I'll just try to explain all these points in brief because we need to move to the, a more important concept, which is corrections and modifiers, right? So I'll just try to cover all these points in brief. If you have any doubts, then you're most welcome. You can ask me at any point of time. The first pre-modifier is determiners. Now, what are these determiners? There are almost 4 to 5 types of determiners, right? I've tried and include the most important determiners, right? A determiner, what does a determiner do? Determiner is a word or a group of words that determines a noun, that helps us to specify a noun. So let's say when we talk about articles, what is the role or what is the purpose of articles? It helps us to, clarify if the noun given in a statement is a specific noun or it's a random noun, right? That's what that's what article shows us in a particular statement. I mean, if we have a in a particular statement, we realize that we're talking about any random or any general noun. If we have the in a particular statement, then we realize that we're talking about one specific or one particular noun, right? So that's what a determiner does. It determines the position of a noun in a particular statement, right? Now, articles are definitely determiners, but we have more determiners, right? So if we talk about article, how are we describing an article as a determiner? How can an article describe a noun? Let's say, for example, if I say, I have a book, right? We are using a determiner, means we are using an article. Now, how is this A describing this book? By keeping or by using a before the noun book, we mean that I have a book. I have one single book. So definitely we are using a number before the noun book. So we mean to say that we have or I have one single book. So this number is describing this book. this noun book, right? So in short, an article being a or the or an is going to describe in any such ways if it is kept in front of a noun. I mean, if it is kept before the noun. Clear? Instead of a, if we use the, right? I have the book. This the article is also going to describe the book, because now in this statement we mean that I have one specific book, right? I'm talking about one particular book. So this the is describing the noun book, right? So in this way, we can definitely say that all the articles describe any kind of a noun if it is placed before it. Clear? Any doubts still here? Any questions still here? Okay. Now, after articles, we talk about demonstrative pronouns. If you remember, in the chapter of pronouns, I did make you understand one of the types of pronouns, which was demonstrative, right? Demonstrative pronouns are this, that, these, and those. Right now, how these demonstrative pronouns describe the nouns? Let's say, for example, if I say, this book is mine. Here, before the noun book, I'm keeping a demonstrative pronoun this. And this book, I'm pointing towards a book and I'm saying this book is mine. So definitely the word this is describing or modifying the word book, right? So the word this is describing or modifying the noun book. Hence, we can say that the purpose of the demonstrative pronouns is also to describe a noun. And hence it is also a modifier, right? So demonstrative pronouns can also be modifiers. After talking about demonstrative pronouns, we talk about possessive adjectives, right? If you remember, I talked about possessive pronouns in the class of pronouns, right? Possessive pronouns were, can anyone tell me what were the possessive pronouns? Or any examples of possessive pronouns that you remember? Possessive pronouns were, no, not them. Exactly. Correct, Sandeep. Mine, yours, hers, their, his. Exactly. So all these are possessive pronouns. In fact, we have a possessive pronoun in this particular statement, right? Mine or his or hers or theirs, right? All these are possessive pronouns. But let's say, for example, there is a difference. I'll write down two statements, but both the statement will mean the same. Tell me one thing. Is there a difference between the statement, this book is mine, and this is my book, right? The meaning of the statement of both the statements is completely the same. But there's a difference that in the first statement, we have a possessive, we have this demonstrative pronoun, which is used as a modifier because it is trying to describe the noun book. But in the second statement, we have this possessive adjective, which is trying to describe the noun book. And hence, in the second statement, possessive adjective is a modifier. I hope now you realize the difference between demonstrative pronouns and possessive adjectives and possessive pronouns. Right? So don't get confused between possessive pronouns and possessive adjectives. Mine, his, hers, theirs, all are possessive pronouns. But when we talk about adjectives, then they are my, his, its, and all that, right? All those adjectives, right? So in the second statement, we have my as a possessive adjective, and hence it is acting as a modifier. Clear? So now we have three types. We have articles, we have demonstrative pronouns, we have possessive adjectives, and lastly, we also have quantifiers. Right? Quantifiers are basically the words which describe a quantity, right? So we have some, few, a few, the few, many, several, a lot of, all these are quantifiers. Let's say, for example, if I say, I see a few stars in the sky, right? Can you name the noun in this particular statement? The noun is stars, right? The noun is stars. And can you also tell me a particular word which is trying to describe the noun in this particular statement? The word is a few, right? A few or few, right? So a few, or whatever word which we are using to quantify something or to describe something in quantities are also known as modifiers, because they also try to modify a noun or describe a noun. So here we have a list of all the determiners, which are articles, demonstrative pronouns, possessive adjectives, and quantifiers. And all of these play a role of a modifier if placed exactly and immediately before a noun. Clear? Okay, let's move ahead. I hope you don't have any doubts still here or any questions still here. Okay, let's move ahead to now second pre-modifier, which is present participle. What is a present participle? If you guys remember in the yesterday's session, I made you understand the definition of a gerund, right? Do you remember the definition of a gerund? Does anyone remember? What is a gerund? A gerund is basically if we are adding ing, exactly correct, Tushar. If we are adding ing in a verb, right? And if after adding ing, it starts acting as a noun, then it is known as a gerund. But what is a present participle? In the present participle, if after the verb we add ing, and after adding ing, if it starts acting as an adjective, then it is a present participle. Now, I hope you'll understand the difference between a gerund and a present participle, and I hope this makes you easy. This makes easy for you to also understand the definition of a present participle, right? So a gerund is verb plus ing acting as a noun, and a present participle is verb plus ing acting as an adjective. Now come back to this. What is a present participle? A present participle is an ing form of a verb that works as an adjective. The example is a boring book makes me sleep. Right? What is the present participle in this particular statement? A boring. Right? Boring word is exactly correct. So boring is the present participle, and because it is describing the noun book, it will act as a pre-modifier. Why pre-modifier? Because it is coming before the noun. Right? Take the second example. A smiling child can make your day. Right? Here, the present participle is the word smiling, and here the present participle, which is smiling, is acting as a pre-modifier because it is also describing the noun child, right? A smiling child. What kind of a child? A smiling child can make your day. Clear? So again, we have gone through the second type of a pre-modifier, which is a present participle, right? Now, let's talk about a past participle. What is a past participle? A past participle is nothing but the third form of verb that works as an adjective. Present participle was ing, verb plus ing acting as an adjective. A past participle is the third form of a verb acting as an adjective, right? For example, an uneducated, right? Educate, educated, educated. You need to find out the third form of verb in a particular statement. Right? If the third form of verb acts as an adjective, then it will be the past participle for you, right? So an uneducated person has high chances of failure. In this particular statement, what is the past participle? Uneducated, right? It is the third form of the verb uneducate, right? So if this is a word, if this is a third form of word describing the noun person, then it will be a pre-modifier for us because it is trying to describe the word, it is trying to describe the noun person, right? What kind of a person? An uneducated person has high chances of failure. Take the second example, a motivated person. Again, the word motivated is the third form of the verb of the word motivate. Motivate, motivated, motivated, right? For this, you also need to have a basic knowledge of the three forms of verb of all the common words, right? So a motivated person, what kind of a person can achieve anything in life? A motivated person can achieve anything in life, right? And hence, because it is also modifying or describing the noun person, it will be a past participle and it will act as a pre-modifier. Clear? Any doubts, any questions? So we have gone through determiners, we've gone through present participle, and we have also gone through past participle, right? Tushar, these are basically the three forms of verb, and these three forms of verbs are used in different statements depending on the tense of that particular statement. Right? So let's say, for example, if the tense of a particular statement is present tense, then you're probably going to use the first form of verb. So let's say, for example, if the statement is, I educate people, right? I educate people. This is a present tense because it is happening and it is probably going to happen in future as well. So educate is the first form of verb. I have used the first form of verb in this particular statement. But if the statement is in the past tense, right? Let's say, I educated a person, right? Or a person was educated by me. Then I have used a second or probably a third form of verb in the sentence, because whatever form of verb you use in a particular statement depends on the kind of a tense being used in that particular statement. So it depends on the tenses. You have to, what a verb is, what tenses is, and hence you should be knowing that which form of verb you have to use in that particular statement, depending on the tense, right? Clear? So in the past participle, we basically see that if a particular statement has the third form of verb, and if it is placed immediately before the noun, then you can say that it is a pre-modifier. Clear? Okay, let's move ahead towards adjectives. We all know what adjectives are, right? What does an adjective do? What is the role of an adjective? We have already discussed this in the starting of the session, that an adjective, or the role of an adjective, is to describe a noun or a pronoun. Correct? Yes, Swastika. So an adjective can definitely be a modifier. For example, she is a helpful lady, right? In this particular statement, we have this adjective helpful, and it is trying to describe the noun lady, right? In the second example, he can talk to confused people. In this statement as well, we have an adjective confused, which is trying to describe the noun people. In the third example, we say that they have a beautiful house, right? In this example, we have the adjective beautiful, which is trying to describe the noun house, right? So hence we can say that adjectives also play a very important role in becoming a pre-modifier in statements, right? What are the first two before past participle, ma'am? Please repeat. Joined a bit late. Yatharth, so we have a list of pre-modifiers and post-modifiers. I'll just try to repeat the definition once. A modifier is basically a word or a group of words which are used to describe another part of speech, right? So adjectives, adverbs, these two are definitely the most important modifiers. But apart from these, we also have other modifiers. We have pre-modifiers, we have post-modifiers, and here we are discussing pre-modifiers. The first pre-modifier was determiner, the second was present participle, third was past participle, and fourth was adjective. Clear? Coming to the fifth pre-modifier, we have nouns. Now, you might be surprised thinking that how a noun can act as a pre-modifier. How can a noun describe or modify another noun, right? It can. Let's say, for example, if I say, I work at a music station, right? If I work at a music station, are we talking about one particular noun in this statement? If you were given to choose nouns from this statement, what would have you done, right? You would have picked two nouns. The first noun would have been music and the second noun would have been station, because both of them individually are nouns, right? But when we talk about this particular statement, then in this statement, music is acting as an adjective to the noun station. If we talk about both of them individually, then they both would be individual nouns. They both would be considered as individual nouns. But when we talk about this particular statement, then in this statement, the word music is acting, it is not acting as a noun, it is acting as an adjective to this noun station. And hence, it will be acting as a pre-modifier because it is describing something else, because it is describing another noun. Right? In the second example, she is a college trustee. The word college and the word trustee, both of them are nouns, right? Both of them are nouns. College is a common noun and trustee also might be a common noun or a proper noun, depending on the statement, right? But in this statement, the word college is acting as an adjective to the noun trustee, right? She is a college trustee. His sister works in a beauty salon. In this statement as well, if you look at the two words beauty and salon, both of them are individually considered nouns. right? Beauty is an abstract noun because it can just be felt, right? Salon is a common noun, right? So if we talk about both these words, they both are acting individually as nouns, but in this particular statement, beauty is acting as an adjective to the noun salon. What kind of a salon? A beauty salon, right? His sister works in a beauty salon. Hence, nouns can also work as pre-modifiers if in the statements they are trying to describe other nouns. Clear? Any doubts in any of the pre-modifier? Because, okay, great. Can I just have a yes from all of you before we move to post modifiers? Please, just a yes from all of you. It will make things easy for me. Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much. Great. Sure. Let's move on to post modifiers now, right? What are post modifiers? We again have a list of post modifiers, and from that list, the first is prepositional phrase. What is a preposition? Right? What is the purpose of a preposition? It describes position, place, or time, right? Now, a prepositional phrase is a group of words consisting of a preposition, its object, and any words that modify the object. So if we talk about the example, can you see the Santa Claus in the red dress? Right? Now try to understand, in the post modifiers, we'll be having the modifier after the noun. That's why it is called a post modifier, right? Post noun, after the noun. So in this particular example, what is the noun acting in this statement? Yes, Yatharth, we could definitely say that, right? No, Sandeep, the noun is Santa Claus, right? The noun is Santa Claus, and there is a prepositional. Yes, exactly. The prepositional phrase is in the red dress. The noun is Santa Claus, and the prepositional phrase is in the red dress because the phrase starts with a preposition in. Right? The prepositions are in, on, at, right? All these are prepositions, for, all these are prepositions. And that's why if we have a phrase starting with a preposition immediately after a noun, then it will act as a post modifier, right? Listen to it again. If we have a phrase starting with a preposition immediately after a noun in a statement, then it will act as a post modifier. So for example, if this says, can you see the Santa Claus in the red dress? You immediately realize that we have a preposition in, and we have the whole phrase starting with in, which is a preposition, and we have the phrase immediately after the noun Santa Claus. Clear, right? Just because we have this phrase immediately after the noun, we can say that it will act as a post modifier. Clear? Same way in the second example, earlier you told us an example of this book is mine. Does the statement both have pre and post modifiers? No, Aditi. Why will this have a post modifier? See, the statement is this book is mine, right? If the statement is this book is mine and the noun is book, then what do we have after book? We don't have anything after the noun book. So we don't have any post modifier in this statement. Right? We just have a pre-modifier, and the pre-modifier is the word this, which acts as a demonstrative pronoun. Clear, Aditi? We'll have a clear look on the on the list of all the post modifiers, but we don't have any post modifier in this particular statement, right? Clear? Because is not a preposition, right? Is an auxiliary verb. It's a helping verb, and in this statement, it's a main verb, right? Okay, so can you see the second example is I have kept the sweets on the table. We again have a phrase which starts with a preposition, right? What is the preposition in this particular statement? On. On is the preposition. It indicates the position, right? We have a phrase starting with on. Correct, Swastika. Correct, Tushar. Correct, Yatharth. Yes, we have a phrase starting with on, and we have this phrase immediately after the noun sweets. And that's why it will again act as a post modifier. So in short, we can say that prepositional phrases, if in a statement comes immediately after a noun, then they will act as post modifiers. Clear? Okay, let's move ahead to the second point. The second point is relative clauses, right? All of us know what relative pronouns are. I've made you understand this in detail in the chapter of pronouns. The relative pronouns were, or the relative pronouns are which, that, and who, right? So if we have a relative clause is a clause starting with a relative pronoun, right? So if we have, let's look at the definition as well. A relative clause is a clause that starts with a relative pronoun, which, that, and who, and works as an adjective. It comes just after the noun it modifies. So if we have a clause in a statement starting with a relative pronoun, acting as an adjective, coming immediately after a noun, then it will act as a post modifier, right? Listen to it again. If we have a relative clause, or if we have a clause starting with a relative pronoun and acting as an adjective immediately after a noun, then it will act as a post modifier. Clear? Look at the examples. The first, but which, that, and who are demonstrative pronouns. Yatharth, that's what I'm telling you. In this particular statement, these are not, we need to, which, that, and who are used often in statements. Sometimes they are used as demonstrative pronouns. Sometimes they are used as relative pronouns. Right? So you need to look at the position of those words in a statement. Let's say, for example, if I say, which book is this? I'm asking you a question. Which book is this? Then in this statement, which is acting as an interrogative pronoun. But if I say that the book which you gave me yesterday is very boring, then in this statement, which is acting as a relative pronoun, right? So these words could act as multiple types of pronouns depending on their usage and depending on their position in statements, right? Who never gives up, always wins the game, can consider whole as post modifier. Okay, I'll come to that. Yes, Rahul. Yes, Tushar. Just a minute. Let me go to the example. The example is a man who never gives up always wins the game. Now your question might be that whether our modifier or post modifier will be who never gives up or who never gives up always wins the game. Right? So the post modifier will be who never gives up. Right? The phrase is who, or the clause is who never gives up. A clause is always a part of a statement which combines the other parts of the statement. Right? So in this particular statement, the clause who never gives up is combining two parts of the statement, a man and always wins the game. Clear? So in this statement, the relative clause is who never gives up because it is starting with the relative pronoun who, and it is coming immediately after the noun man. Clear? In the second example, she is the same celebrity that I met yesterday. Right? So in this particular example, we have a noun celebrity. And we also have a clause that I met yesterday because it is starting with a relative pronoun that. Clear? So she is the same celebrity that I met yesterday. That I met yesterday will be the relative pronoun, relative clause, and it will act as a post modifier because it is coming immediately. It is situated immediately after the noun celebrity. Clear? Any questions till now? Any doubts till now? I hope all this is going smooth. I'm trying to make you understand things in as much easy way as I can. But if you have any doubts, please let me know, right? Don't hesitate in asking any of the silliest doubts that you have. Okay. The third point is present participle phrase. Now you already know what a present participle is, right? What is a present participle? Verb plus ing acting as an adjective, right? So a phrase that starts with a present participle and modifies a noun in a sentence, then it is called a present participle, and it starts with a present participle and ing form of a verb. So let's say, for example, if the statement is the woman sitting next to my friend is a criminal, right? In the pre-modifier, we also had a present participle, but that was not a phrase, right? It was not a phrase. It was just one word, right? Let's say the example was a crying person looks dull, right? Now, in this particular example, the word present participle was crying, right? Because it was trying to describing the noun person. A crying person looks dull. But in this post modifier, it acts as a whole phrase starting with a present participle, and it comes immediately after the noun, not before the noun, right? So let's say if the example is the women, which is a noun, which is acting as a noun in the statement, and just immediately after this, we have a present participle phrase because it is starting with a present participle sitting, right? Verb plus ing. So sitting next to my friend is a present participle phrase in this statement. Clause mostly come under relative clauses. Okay, so which type of a clause mostly comes under relative clauses? Yatharth, relative clauses are basically the clauses starting with relative pronoun. So if you have a clause starting with who, which, that, whose, then you have a relative clause. Clear? And I hope you have understood the difference between the pre-modifier present participle and the post-modifier present participle phrase. In the pre-modifier, we had a present participle in the form of a one single word just coming immediately before the noun. In this present participle phrase, we have a whole phrase starting with a present participle coming immediately after the noun. Clear? So let's say in the second example, we have the people wearing the blue clothes are from a different group, right? We have the noun people. We also have a present participle phrase starting with the word wearing, right? Wearing is a present participle verb plus ing, wear plus ing, right? And hence this phrase wearing the blue clothes will act as a present participle phrase. And because it is acting as a present participle phrase immediately after a noun, it will act as a post modifier. Clear? Yes, exactly, Tushar. Clear? Are things clear till now? Any doubts, any questions? Okay, let's move on to the fourth point, which is a past participle phrase. Again, you already know what a past participle is, right? A past participle is a third form of verb acting as an adjective. So in the pre-modifier, we just had one word acting as a past participle. In this post modifier, again, we have a whole phrase, right? Starting with a past participle and coming immediately after the noun. So let's say if the example is the woman arrested by the cops is a murderer. Right? We have the noun women, and immediately after the noun woman, we have a phrase starting with the past participle, starting with the word which is a third form of verb, right? Which is that word? The word is arrested. Correct, Rahul? The word is arrested. It is a third form of verb. Arrest, arrested, arrested. Right? So arrested by the cops is a past participle phrase acting as a post modifier because it is coming immediately after the word, after the noun woman. Clear? Same way, in the second example, we say, I am living in a house built by my grandparents. Right? So if we talk about this particular statement, exactly, correct, Tushar. We have a noun house, and immediately after the noun house, we have the third form of verb built. Build, built, built. Right? So built by my grandparents is the past participle phrase, and because it is coming immediately after the noun house, it will act as a post modifier. Nandini, yes, it might have. The chances are less, but it can definitely have. Right? Clear? It's a verb, Tushar. You're doing something, right? Living in this particular statement is a verb. I am living, so I am performing an action, I'm doing something, so it will be a verb. Clear? Yes, Tushar. Yes, Nandini, definitely we could say that. But yes, I mean, because it's an article, we could take it as an article. The before the word woman is an article, basically, because we are using an article, we specify the position of the, I mean, the specification of the noun woman, right? Are we talking about any particular woman, or are we talking about any random or general woman? So it will be an article, but according to general grammar rules, articles are also known as determiners. And they're also described as adjectives. And because they're determiners, they would definitely act as a pre-modifier. Clear? So according to it will be past participle or present participle phrase will contain the whole object in a statement or a part of it. I did not understand your question, Yatharth. What are you asking? It is just a phrase. It is just a part of the statement. It is not the whole statement, Yatharth. A phrase or a clause is basically a small part of a statement which helps in combining different parts of a statement. It could be in the end or it could be in the middle. right? So it's not a whole statement. It's just a small part of the statement. Clear, Yatharth? Okay. Let's move on to the fifth point, which is infinitives. Now, what are infinitives? All you have to remember is you need to remember the form of infinitives. The formula of the infinitives is to plus first form of verb, to plus V1. So if the statement is, I have a lot of people to meet today, we have the noun people in this statement, and immediately after the noun people, we have an infinitive, to plus first form of verb, meet, right? So if you have an infinitive coming immediately after the noun, then it will act as a post modifier. And why is this infinitive acting as a post modifier? Because it is trying to describe the noun people. Because it is trying to describe a reason. I have a lot of people, but to do what? To meet, right? So it is again trying to describe the word people, and because it is acting as a describer, because it is acting as a modifier, it will be a post modifier. Clear? So if we have an infinitive coming immediately after a noun in a particular statement, then it is going to act as a post modifier. He is looking for a girl. He's looking for a girl. Why? To do what? To marry. So to marry is again an infinitive, to plus first form of verb, marry, married, married, right? So because we have an infinitive immediately after the noun girl, it will again act as a post modifier. Clear? Can I have a yes from all of you before I move on, please? Just a yes from all of you. It will help me in understanding that you guys are listening to me, please. Yes, sure, Unnati. I'll repeat it. Okay, so Unnati, an infinitive is basically to plus first form of verb. Right? So it's basically the formula of an infinitive, right? What do we call an infinitive? If the statement is in the form, or if the part of a statement is in the form of to plus V1, then it is going to act as an infinitive. Now, if in any statement we have an infinitive immediately after a noun, then it will act as a post modifier. So let's say, for example, I have a lot of people to meet today. In this statement, the noun is people, right? And we have an infinitive immediately after the noun people. The infinitive is to meet, right? To plus meet, right? Meet is first form of verb. And that's why to meet will act as a post modifier, because it is acting as an infinitive and it is also coming immediately after the noun people. Clear, Unnati? Okay, great. Let's move on to the last and the sixth type. Sixth is appositives. What is appositives, or what are appositives? An appositive is basically, or the purpose of an appositive is to modify or describe a noun or a pronoun by renaming it. So let's say, for example, if I say Amitabh Bachchan is a proper noun, right? It's a name of someone. So Amitabh Bachchan, a very popular actor in India, is working on a reality show, or is working for a reality show, right? Now, we are basically renaming a proper noun, which is Amitabh Bachchan. Because we are using a phrase to rename a noun, it will be acting as a post modifier. So whenever in any statement, if you find a phrase which is used to rename a noun, and if it comes immediately after that noun, then it is going to act as a post modifier. Just try to remember this one rule, that pre-modifiers will come immediately before the noun and post-modifiers will come immediately after the noun. You should not have anything in between a pre-modifier and a noun, and in between a post-modifier and a noun, right? So modifier can be anything that modifies. Aditi, I'll explain it again, don't worry. So modifier can be anything that modifies either noun, adjective, adverb. This can be pre and post to them. Is this correct? Yes, exactly, Yatharth. Completely correct. Completely correct. So a modifier is something which describes something else, and it can be, the types of modifiers are pre-modifiers and post-modifiers. And we have understood the list of all the pre-modifiers and post-modifiers till now. Right? So Aditi, this is basically an appositive. An appositive is, the purpose of an appositive, or we could say an appositive is a phrase which tries to rename a noun. Right? So in this particular statement, it says that Amitabh Bachchan, a very popular actor in India, we are renaming the noun Amitabh Bachchan using a phrase, a very popular actor in India. Right? So a very popular actor in India is trying to describe the noun Amitabh Bachchan, right? Getting it, Aditi? And that's why, because it's a phrase which is trying to rename the noun Amitabh Bachchan, which means it is basically trying to describe the noun Amitabh Bachchan by renaming it, it will act as an appositive. And because it is coming immediately after the noun, it will act as a post modifier. So if in any statement you find a phrase which acts or which renames a noun, and which if it comes immediately after that particular noun, then it will act as a post modifier. Clear? Okay, I hope you don't have any doubts till now, because now we are done with pre-modifiers and post-modifiers, and now we'll be moving to understand the most important part of this session, which is corrections in the modifiers. So misplaced modifiers, dangling modifiers, squinting modifiers, right? We'll understand, and these could be a bit tricky for you to understand. So stay attentive and concentrate, please concentrate. And if you have any questions, do ask them in the chat box, right? Okay, so there are a few mistakes in modifiers. Whatever modifiers we have understood till now, whether we talk about pre-modifiers or post-modifiers, we could have some errors in those statements, right? So these mistakes in modifiers are basically nothing but errors made in a statement. Just like we used to solve all these questions, we used to find out the part which had an error, right? Which used to have an error. Just like those questions, we might also have some errors or mistakes in these statements, wherein we could have used modifiers at a wrong place. And we need to, all those mistakes are divided into a few types, which are dangling modifiers, misplaced modifiers, and squinting modifiers. And we also have one more type, limiting modifiers, right? But that's not important. So we have basically two main modifiers, two main mistakes in the modifiers, and those two main mistakes are dangling modifiers and misplaced modifiers. Clear? Now we are going to understand these two in detail, and then squinting and limited in a brief way, right? First of all, let's talk about a dangling modifier, and how do we define this, and what kind of a mistake or error is committed in this dangling modifier. A dangling modifier basically occurs when the modifier describes a word that is missing from the statement, right? Just imagine you're trying to modify something in a statement, but that something itself is missing, right? You want to modify something, but you don't have anything in the statement to modify. You don't have a subject, or you don't have a noun to modify. Your purpose is to modify or to describe something in a statement, but you don't have that something in that particular statement, right? So a dangling modifier occurs when the modifier describes a word. It describes a word that is missing. The word which a modifier is trying to describe is itself missing from the statement. You can understand this by giving, I've just tried to explain this with a fun example. Try to imagine that I am conducting a session, I'm teaching something, and it's like I want to teach, but I don't have any students to teach, right? My class is blank, it is empty, right? So because my class is empty, the purpose is to teach. I really want to teach. I'm very, very eager to teach, but I don't have any students in my class, right? So the purpose of a modifier is to modify, but it is not having anything to modify in a statement. And that's where we have a mistake or an error of a dangling modifier. Clear? I hope you got the basic idea of what a dangling modifier is. We'll definitely be understanding this type with the examples, right? But till now, any questions, any doubts? Do you want me to repeat it, or it's fine? Okay, great. Let's move on. Now we will see how to correct a dangling modifier. We'll have a look at a few examples, right? The first example is, first of all, we'll have a look at the ways to correct a dangling modifier, but you won't be able to understand this unless you look at an example. First way is to infuse a word. Because that word is missing, all you can do is you can infuse that word into that statement in order to correct it. Right? So if that particular word is missing, all you can do is add that word in that statement. So add or infuse a word or words close to the dangling modifier, right? So the word or words you put in a sentence should be able to modify logically. The second way is change the participle phrase or modifier into a dependent clause. I hope you guys remember when I took the sessions of conjunctions, right? I made you understand the types: coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions, right? So subordinating, what was a subordinating conjunction? It was basically used as a dependent clause, right? What are subordinating conjunctions? Because, while, although, all these are subordinating conjunctions and they're used in a dependent clause. So the next, the another way in which you can correct a dangling modifier is you could change the participle phrase or modifier into a dependent clause using a subordinate conjunction in the beginning. I'll explain how this applies in an example, but I hope you've understood these two basic ways. The first way is to add or infuse that particular word which is missing from the statement. And the second way is you could try using a subordinating conjunction in the beginning of the statement. Clear? Let's have a look at the example. The first statement, I mean, it is obviously incorrect and you have to correct the statement. You have to remove the error from this statement. The statement is seeking an apology for my bad behavior. A letter was written to my teacher. Right? Try to understand the meaning of the statement clearly. The statement is seeking an apology for my bad behavior. A letter. The meaning of the statement says that basically a letter is seeking an apology. But can a letter seek an apology? No, it's not a living thing. It cannot seek an apology. A person might be seeking an apology, but a letter cannot, right? So something is missing in this statement. Seeking an apology for my bad behavior. A letter was written, but who wrote the letter? Right? So this is a case of a dangling modifier where we have a phrase. We have, what kind of a phrase this is? Seeking an apology for my bad behavior. What kind of a phrase this is? Can anyone tell me? No, we have just understood the phrases. Or correct, it's a present participle, right? ING form. So seeking an apology for my bad behavior. Now, what are we describing here? What is the purpose of seeking an apology? Or we could say that who are we trying to describe here? Is the letter seeking an apology? Who is trying to seek an apology? That particular word is missing. So what you can do is, exactly, we need to infuse I. Right? We need to, exactly, there is no subject. Correct, Yatharth, correct, Bhargav. Right? So we need to infuse that particular word. We could do it in one way, right? So the statement could be seeking an apology for my bad behavior. I wrote a letter to my teacher, right? So the statement could be in such a way. Or if you're trying to add a subordinating conjunction, we could say that because I was seeking an apology for my bad behavior, a letter was written to my teacher, right? So the correct statements could be any of them. The first way is to infuse the subject or to infuse the noun. And the second way could be to add a subordinating conjunction in the starting on the beginning of the statement, right? Because I was seeking an apology. So because this acts as a dependent clause, right? You're basically adding a dependent clause in the beginning of the statement. Because something happened, because X thing happened, Y thing happened. So this is a dependent clause, right? Both the parts of the statement are dependent on each other. Because X is happening, Y is also happening. And that's why in the earlier slide, it was told to you that change the participle phrase or modifier into a dependent clause. Clear? That's what we have done here in the second statement. Because I was seeking an apology, because is a subordinating conjunction and we have used a dependent clause. So because I was seeking an apology for my bad behavior, a letter was written to my teacher. Clear? It is usually encouraged to use words like because at the beginning. It's not usually encouraged, Mahima, because unless it means something to you, you should not use it. Should not use it often, right? So I would say from these two statements, the most correct statement should be the first one. But definitely second is not wrong, right? But in our daily language, it's recommended to use a more direct language rather than to use some subordinating conjunctions in the beginning. Okay, so till now, any questions, any doubts? No, Ankit, it's completely fine. Take care. Ankit, you're asking me a question. I thought you need to leave. I mean, what kind of an example you're giving? Are you asking a question, or are you telling me that you need to leave the session? So adding because change it to dependent clause. It was already in. No, Yatharth. We are basically converting the participle phrase into a dependent clause, because if you see in the statement, in the incorrect statement, it starts with a present participle phrase, right? Seeking an apology for my bad behavior. We need to convert this participle phrase into the dependent clause. And because the correct statement is starting with a subordinating conjunction, it acts as a dependent clause because I was seeking an apology. So you're just converting the participle phrase to the dependent clause, right? Okay, Ankit. So I'll just look back at your question. To be excused from class, a doctor's note is required. Yes, I could say it's correct because it is starting with a prepositional phrase, right? It's correct. Okay, let's move on. I hope this is clear. Can we have a look at some other examples? Will you try to solve them? All you have to do is you have to read a statement and then you have to correct it. You can correct it in two ways. You could use either of the ways. The first way is to infuse the word, and the second way is to, the meaning of the statement should not change. Everything else can change, but the meaning should not change, right? How swastika? I mean, it is coming before the noun, na? Look closer at the statement. Okay. The second question is feeling reasonably confident in his performance, his test was handed to the proctor. Right, come on, try to solve this. You could use either of the ways. All you need to make sure is either you can infuse a word or a subject, or you can use a dependent clause. Come on. Absolutely correct, Tushar. Yes, absolutely correct, Bhargav. Yes, Aditi, correct. Yes, Pragati, correct. No, Pragati. If you have to infuse the subject, you cannot infuse it in the beginning. You have to use it after the phrase. Correct, Unnati. Correct, Himanshu. Correct, Mahima. Correct, Shashank. Yes, correct, Akash. Correct, Utkarsh. Correct, Swastika. Okay. So the statement is feeling reasonably confident in his performance. His test was handed to the proctor. Feeling reasonably confident in his performance, Henry handed. I mean, you could add anything, right? You could have added he, or you could have added any name. Henry handed his test to the proctor. What was missing here? A subject was missing here, right? So they added a subject, or you could also have added a pronoun he, right? Secondly, you could also say that Henry feeling reasonably confident in his performance, or you could say because Henry was feeling reasonably confident in his performance, he handed his test to the proctor, right? So Henry feeling reasonably confident in his performance, handed his test to the proctor. Clear? So all you need to do is need to understand that either you could add a subordinating clause, or you could just infuse the subject as you all have did. You could have added he, or you could have added she if the pronoun was her, or you could have added a subordinating clause, right? No, Yatharth, you cannot add I because you're already given a pronoun his in this statement. So you have to add, you could have added any masculine subject. Clear? Okay. The third question is, by following a budget, her expenses decreased and her savings increased. Come on, try. Aditi, if you would have said he was feeling, then you cannot say he was feeling. You can say he, comma, just like this statement, he, comma, feeling reasonably confident in his performance, comma, handed his test to the proctor. But you cannot start with a statement with he was feeling. You can say, if you want to say he was feeling, you could have added a subordinating conjunction. So because he was feeling, or as he was feeling reasonably confident in his performance, he handed the test to the proctor. Right? If you want to add he was feeling, then you also have to add a subordinating conjunction before it. Clear? Okay. Come on, look at this. By following a budget, her expenses decreased and her savings increased. See, again, a subject is missing. According to the subject, it is trying to say that the expenses are following a budget. Obviously, expenses cannot follow the budget. It's a person who is following a budget, right? Correct, Bhargav. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct, Swastika. Yes. So the answer is, by following a budget, comma, they have added a subordinating conjunction. By following a budget, Marissa, or you could have used any name. You could have also have used she. She decreased her expenses and increased her savings. The answer could also be, by following a budget, she decreased her expenses and increased her savings. Clear? Correct, Sandeep. Yes. Okay. Now, I hope you don't have any questions or any doubts till now. See, it's a tricky chapter, and you cannot expect to solve each and answer or each of the questions clearly before practicing it. So it will definitely need a thorough practice. But I hope you have understood the concept or the basic idea of what a dangling modifier is, and you have just understood a way to solve it. Yes, Yatharth, what are you confused about? Tell me. What exactly are you confused about in the dangling modifier? See, dangling modifier is basically a mistake wherein the particular word which is being described is missing from the statement. Right? So basically you're trying to describe something, but that something is missing. And there are two ways to correct that mistake. The first way is that whatever is missing or whatever subject is missing from the statement, you can add that subject, you can infuse that word acting as a subject. Or second way is you can start the statement with a subordinating conjunction and it should become a dependent clause. Clear? It's as simple, right? All you need is a thorough practice. Don't get confused. Okay. Let's move on to now misplaced modifier. What is a misplaced modifier? See, the name itself suggests that the position of the modifier is wrong. It is being placed somewhere else, right? Where should we exactly place a modifier? Till now, we've understood this one thing, this one detail, that we should definitely place a modifier either immediately after the noun or immediately before the noun, depending on whether that modifier is a pre one or a post one, right? But in short, the moral of the story is clear that we should keep a modifier immediately before or after a noun, which means that we need to put it immediately either in the ascending or in the descending order of the noun, right? So it should be anywhere near the noun. It should not be far away from the noun. It should not be far away from the word which it is trying to describe, right? But I did make a mistake when I said because our expenses. As we are modifying our expenses here, I'm a little confused. No, Bhargav, the statement is completely correct because she was following a budget. Her expenses decreased and her savings increased. It is correct. You have not added she in the later part of the statement, you have just started the statement, you followed the second way. So you have added a subordinating conjunction, and you have started the statement with a dependent clause because she was following a budget. So it's completely correct, right? You should just understand one thing, that the meaning of statement should not change. Don't get confused. Don't get yourself confused, right? In short, we need to see that the meaning stays the same, either by adding that particular subject or by adding the subordinating conjunction. The meaning should not change. Clear? Okay. So a misplaced modifier is basically a modifier placed at a wrong position, right? Because a modifier should always be placed near a noun, misplaced modifiers commit mistakes by placing a modifier far away from the noun. So let's say you can see the example, right? In the first example, it says that covered with hot melting cheese, I ate the pizza. So basically, the statement says that the girl is covered with a hot melting cheese. It covered with the hot melting cheese, I ate the pizza. The modifier, the position of the modifier is wrong. You should have placed the modifier in the correct place, right? The correct statement should be, I ate the pizza covered with hot melting cheese. So the pizza is covered with the hot melting cheese and not the girl. Clear? So these could be really funny. Misplaced modifiers are really very, very funny. Right? They're often used in comic books. The second example is, one morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas. Right? So this statement basically means that the elephant was in my pajamas, because the prepositional phrase, which is acting as a post modifier, is coming exactly after or immediately after the noun elephant. But it should come after I, because I am wearing pajamas. The elephant is not wearing it, right? So the correct statement should be, the one morning I in my pajamas shot an elephant. Clear? So you just need to understand that a misplaced modifier occurs when the modifier describes a word in the sentence other than the one it is intended to describe, right? It should just describe the noun which it intends to describe and not something else. Clear? In the first example, the prepositional phrase which is acting as a post modifier with hot melting cheese is describing the person and not the pizza. Right? You should describe, and you should use a post modifier to describe the pizza and not the girl. Clear? I hope you've understood the basic concept of the misplaced modifier. You've understood the idea. What it does is it changes the position of a modifier. You should place a modifier in the correct position, and you should place it immediately after the noun or before the noun it intends to modify. Clear? Okay, let's look at a few examples. The first example is, wandering around the desert, the sun bit down on the hiker. Now, this statement sounds like the sun is wandering around the desert. Who is wandering around the desert? The hiker, right? And not the sun. So you need to correct the statement by placing the modifier in the correct place. Come on, try to correct it. All you have to do is you have to take the modifier to the correct place. Correct, Tushar. Yes, we could say that. We could also say that, okay. Yes, Swastika. Okay, Bhargav. Okay, Haditi. Okay, Akash. So this statement could have been written in a multiple ways, right? The correct answer should be, the sun bent down on the hiker, wandering around the desert, right? So wandering around the desert is a phrase. It's a present participle phrase, right? And it is acting as a post modifier to the noun hiker. It should not act as a post modifier to the noun desert. It should act it should not act as a post modifier to something else. It should act as a post modifier to the noun hiker, because it is trying to describe the hiker. Who is wandering in the desert? A hiker is wandering in the desert. So the statement should be, the sun bent down on the hiker wandering around the desert. Or you could say, the hiker, comma, wandering around the desert. I mean, you could not have was bet by the sun, you would have said that, but it would have changed the tense of the statement. So the easiest way to deal with this is, you should not play with the tense of the statement. You should just stick to it, and rather you could just move the modifier from something else to the word which it is intending to describe, right? So what we did is we just moved the modifier near the word hiker. The modifier is wandering around the desert, right? And that's why we kept it immediately after the word hiker, and hence it started acting as a post modifier, right? We could say that, Mahima, but that's what I'm saying. It's easy to just place the position of the modifier to immediately after the word. You should not really play with the tenses. Was, bet. Just keep it as it is, right? So the sun bet down. Just try to keep the tense and the position of each and every word the same. All you have to do is you have to play with the modifier and the noun. You don't have to play with anything else in the statement, right? So the sun bet down on the hiker. Just try to keep it same. Sun bet down on the hiker. Which hiker? The hiker who is wandering around the desert. Clear? Okay. Second example is, I saw some raccoons driving home from the work. Right? I mean, this statement says that actually the raccoons are driving home from the work. How can raccoons drive a car? Right? They cannot. So again, there's an error and a modifier is being placed somewhere else. All you need to do is you need to change it by changing the position of a modifier. Come on. Correct, Tushar. Exactly. Yes, you could say that, Aditi. Yes, Bhargav, correct. The statement should be, driving home from work, I saw some raccoons. Right? Driving home from work, I saw some raccoons. Clear? Yes, all of you are correct. You can also use subordinating conjunctions such as while. Right? Most of you have used while and it's completely fine. You can use them. So driving home from work, comma, I saw some raccoons. Clear? Okay. The third example is, thank you, Tushar. I've just tried to make this session as much fun as possible so that it becomes easy for you to understand. And the statement is, dressed in a diaper and drooling, grandpa read a book to his granddaughter. Now, again, this statement suggests that the grandpa is wearing a diaper, but no, the granddaughter is wearing a diaper, right? So again, you need to change the position of the modifier in this. Come on. Correct, Akash. Correct, Bhargav. Correct, Swastika. Yes, Anjali. Correct. Correct, Aditi. Correct, Lakshita. Correct, Yatharth. Yes, Yatharth. You need to change the position of phrase. Correct, Tushar. Correct, Nandini. Correct, Devasmita. Correct, Sandeep. So, the statement is, grandpa read a book to his granddaughter, comma, who was dressed in a diaper and drooling. Clear? So this is again a relative clause which is added immediately after the noun granddaughter. Who was dressed in a diaper and drooling is a relative clause, which is, because it is starting with the relative pronoun who, right? And because it is starting with the relative pronoun who, it is acting as a relative clause and a post modifier to the noun granddaughter. Clear? Okay. Any doubts or any questions till now? Yes, Lakshita, definitely you can use it. I'm telling you, this is, don't try to get yourselves involved into a lot of complications. You should just need to make sure about one thing, that the meaning of the statement should not change. Right? That's it. All you need to do is you need to try and keep the statement as much you can similar to the question. All you need to do is you need to change the position of the modifier and bring it near to the noun which it is intending to describe, right? Okay. The third type is a squinting modifier, right? A squinting modifier happens when the modifier could describe more than one word in a statement. If you have a modifier which you feel is describing more than one word in a statement, then it will act as a squinting modifier. Right? So let's say, for example, saving a life often made him feel proud. Are you getting confused reading this statement? You'll have two perspectives after you read this statement. The first perspective is saving a life often. So either you can understand this statement in such a way that you're saving a life often, you're saving a life a lot of times, right? Or you can understand this statement in such a way that saving a life often made him feel proud. He felt proud often by saving a life. So this word often, either this word can describe the phrase saving a life, or it can describe the word feeling proud. Right now, because we have a squinting modifier, you just need to understand that if you have a squinting modifier, you could have two perspectives in that particular statement, and you need to choose the more correct perspective, right? So if you are unclear between did he save a life often or did the action often made him feel proud, you need to choose the more correct perspective, right? And the more correct perspective should be saving a life made him feel proud often, right? We usually feel proud a lot of times. We don't think that whether we are saving a life more than one time or whether we are saving a life often. We just feel that if we have saved even one life, we are trying to feel proud of our own selves. So obviously you can choose your own perspective, but at some point you'll start realizing that you'll be in a situation to choose one particular perspective from both the ones, right? Clear? Is it clear till now? Any question? I hope you understood the basic idea of what a squinting modifier is. If you have a word or a group of words in a statement which is intending to describe more than one word, then we have a squinting modifier. Let's have a look at the second example. The second example is listening to loud music slowly gives me a headache. See, again, you can have two perspectives in this statement. Listening to loud music slowly gives me a headache. If you're trying to slowly listen to loud music, then it will give you a headache. Or you could say, listening to loud music slowly gives me a headache. When you listen to loud music, it slowly gives you a headache. So either it could describe the word listening, whether you're listening something slowly, or it could describe the word headache, whether it is slowly giving you a headache or it's giving you a headache fast. Clear? Now, what will you choose? When I listen to loud music, I slowly develop a headache. You're free to choose any of the perspectives that you feel like. I'll tell this again, but after practicing a few statements, you'll start framing your own opinions, and ultimately you'll start feeling that, okay, this one of the perspectives has to be correct and this will be correct. So you'll soon, after practicing a lot of questions, you'll soon start getting correct answers, right? Okay. Any questions, any doubts till now? I hope things are pretty much understandable. We're going to the last topic of our session, which is a limiting modifier. A limiting modifier is basically a modifier that limits the meaning of one particular word or a group of words which they modify. For example, limiting modifiers could be any of these words: only, just, nearly, hardly, almost. Or we also have a few other words which are not included in this particular list. But the most important limiting modifiers are only, just, nearly, hardly, almost. Clear? Now, if we find such words in a statement, and if we feel that we have modifiers which are, we have such modifiers which are limiting the meaning of the words. Let's say, for example, if I say, only I want to marry her. We have a word only in this statement. Listening to loud music, I slowly get a headache. Yeah, this is completely correct, Tushar. That's what the answer was. Listening to the loud music, I slowly get a headache. Huh? Okay. So you have a word only in this statement. Only I want to marry her. It is acting as a modifier. You have another statement which says, I want to marry only her. And you have a third statement which says, I only want to marry her. right? The meaning of these three statements are completely different. The first statement says, only I want to marry her. So no one else wants to marry her. Only I want to marry her. The second statement says, I want to marry only her. I don't want to marry anyone else. I want to marry only her. The third statement says, I only want to marry her. I don't want to do anything else with my life. I only want to marry her. That's my only purpose, right? So the word only used in all the three statements means completely different, right? And that's why it's known as a limiting modifier. Clear? Is it clear to all of you? Yes, Ankit, correct. Absolutely correct. So any questions? I hope this session was useful to you, and I hope now you're pretty much clear about this concept. All you need is a thorough practice, but I hope I've made you understood at least the basic idea of all these topics.